Hey everybody, welcome back to another Word Balloon. It's John Suntress here, and I hope you're going to enjoy today's show. It's the start of a new Bendis Tapes. It's kind of in parts because I recorded a conversation with Brian about a month ago and just got really busy, and I'm just releasing it now, along with the Defenders press conference that happened last week with Brian and Tom Brevort and Dave Marquez, which was a nice lengthy conversation about the new Defenders book. We saw the preview for it in Free Comic Book Day. They teased that because the press conference was recorded before Free Comic Book Day. But I also took the opportunity to talk to Brian and just get his thoughts on some new releases that had come out. Jessica Jones and Danny Rand bonding in Jessica Jones issue 8. And some other new issue things that I wanted to hit him up with. So we're going to dip in and out of a Bendis Tapes and then go to this Defenders press conference. And then in part 2, you'll get the rest of our discussion, okay? It's great because lots of content today and then a nice big juicy part 2 that we, predominantly is the stuff we recorded last month. But it's all still relevant. We talk, Miles Morales and Jessica Jones in general, and this current story arc, the trial of Maria Hill, or the secrets of Maria Hill. I forget what the deal is with Maria Hill. You'll know. And Defenders, a nice big preview on Defenders that even expands beyond the press conference that you're getting today in part 1. Lots of good juicy stuff in part 2 of this Bendis Tapes on Word Balloon. And, this coincides with Word Balloon's 12th anniversary. Can you believe it? May 10th, 2005, I put up the Word Balloon website and at first just posted MP3 interviews. I had, I believe, Mark and Draco. I know I had my buddy Joe Gentile from Moonstone Books. I had Brian Azzarello. And I think my buddy Doug Klauba was the 4th interview. I could be wrong. But, early on, I know I had the great Jeff Parker and Mike Ruingo. This is when I knew Word Balloon was cooking. Mike Ruingo emailed me. And it's like, hey, I'm having trouble downloading your conversation with Jeff Parker because I'm on an Apple computer and you're telling me to right-click to download the MP3. So that's the beauty of the Internet 2005. And I've said this before in tribute to Mike. He was really one of the first creators that really was like, hey, I love what you're doing. And I really sought out his feedback, and he was really kind to give it to me. We all miss Mike Ringo. But anyway, I'm glad to still be here after 12 years. Brian Bendis has always been a big part of Word Balloon. His Bendis board was a good place to gather my initial core audience, and I'll never forget that and appreciate the continued support and listenership from the Bendis board and beyond. All of you thousands more have glommed on, and really appreciate it. Happy to bring this to you each week. New fun conversations. Okay, there's one bit of business that involves really all of this, and I'm really glad to put this out on a Bendis tape. But the issue of net neutrality has reared its ugly head again. We thought we had resolved all this with the Obama administration and his FCC that really went out and decided to create legislation or I should say, not legislation, that's the legislative branch's job, but, through the FCC, they reclassified all of the internet service providers as under Title II of the FCC Act, which gave them stronger oversight from the FCC and kept all these internet service providers from creating these speed lanes where certain websites will download faster because they have a financial interest with the internet service providers. Like if, say, Verizon's streaming thing wanted to load faster than Netflix. My basic example is Domino's Pizza versus Joe's Pizza in your hometown. They should have a level playing field. If you want to order pizza, you should be able to go to wherever you want and get the same internet experience. That's what net neutrality is all about. Word Balloon is an independent thing and is very proud of. I'm proud of being independent, and it is very important. Even if I were, in some sort of deal with a big business, I'm sorry, I'm still a First Amendment, equal rights kind of guy at heart, and I do think it's very important that if you've got a lemonade stand and Sunkist is making lemonade, you should be able to sell your lemonade equally on the internet. Nobody should get preferential treatment. I'm a huge believer in that. Unfortunately, our current president's FCC head, his agenda is to reclassify the internet service providers with less oversight. And again, there's nothing that says they are absolutely going to do a faster lane, but I think oversight is necessary, and I think it's really important to keep the internet service providers where they're at. So, thank God for John Oliver. If you didn't watch HBO's Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, it's on YouTube as well. I encourage you to watch it because he really explains net neutrality very simply, and because in typical FCC fashion, they allow the public to have their say, but they always make it really complicated for the public to be able to give their say. But John Oliver has given us a wonderful shortcut to petition the FCC. I urge you to watch his HBO segment about net neutrality, the brand new one from this year. And I will, however, now provide you with those same shortcuts and what you need to do. So what you need to do is go to gofccyourself.com, and that will take you directly to the petition page. Then you hit Express. That will send you to the correct proceedings. It fills in all the required information. You just have to give your name and your address and your email, and then give your comments. And the key phrase to say is, I support net neutrality backed by Title II oversight of ISPs, because the FCC is trying to, again, change that. And this isn't a partisan thing. Because literally, how many issues can you find where the National Rifle Association and the American Civil Liberties Union agree on this issue? Conservatives and liberals agree. Yes, there are pockets of conservatives that disagree with this, and clearly, I think the big business interests out there, it doesn't surprise me that the current FCC chairman is thinking this way, but it's wrong, and it was really important for net neutrality to be regulated the way that it was when it went under the Title II oversight. So this is what we need. GoFCCyourself.com, hit Express, fill out your information, and what you want to say is, I support strong net neutrality backed by Title II oversight of ISPs. That's it for the editorial. Let's get into the entertainment now. Word Balloon is brought to you by InStock Trades at InStockTrades.com. InStock Trades has always been a great supporter of Word Balloon. I appreciate their patronage, and you will appreciate their store because they have great books at great prices. By the way, small business. All right, think of that. InStockTrades.com and Amazon, classic example. But let's go on with the InStock Trades stuff that you can get. How about Rise of the Black Flame, another wonderful BPRD story written by Mike Mignola and Chris Robertson, and drawn by Chris Mitten. These are like three good guys. And Dave Stewart once again doing the coloring. We just had Gary Gianni on talking about the latest Hellboy graphic novel. Here's another one, though. 42% off, a great BPRD story. It's just $11.59. You can also get all-new Wolverine from my buddy Tom Taylor. Volume 3, Enemy of the State 2 is available. It's Tom Taylor and Nicole Varela, or Varela. And it's 42% off. It's just $10.43. All right, let me get some indie books in here because, I just went on a whole big thing about, big guys versus little guys and stuff like that. So I'm trying to find a good deal on a little guy book. Here we go, Nailbiter. Nailbiter Volume 6. Joshua Williamson, Mike Henderson. I haven't had either of them on Word Balloon, but I know Nailbiter is an excellent image book. This collects issues 26 through 30. It's Volume 6, 42% off, $8.69. Tarzan versus the Planet of the Apes, or I should say Tarzan on the Planet of the Apes. What a great idea. My buddies Tim Seeley and Dave Walker, acquaintance in Dave's case, but I hope we do become friends eventually. We have a lot of mutual friends. Tarzan on the Planet of the Apes is drawn by Fernando Dagnino, I hope I'm saying that right, but or Dagnino, probably with a tilde in there. 208 pages. It's 42% off, just $11.59. A great premise, great idea from Dark Horse and Dynamite doing that wonderful book. So just a few of the great books that are on sale from InStockTrades.com. You've heard the spiel before. But I mean it. I mean, this is a great service, and they give you great books at great prices. You save even more if you pay $50. You'll get free shipping, and they pack their books well. They pride themselves on giving you great books at great prices. InStockTrades.com. Okay, without further ado, let us get into our Bendis Tapes conversation. I kept having technical difficulties. It wouldn't be Word Balloon recently without technical difficulties. I think finally I have solved my issues. I had to reload Windows, the whole spiel, but it doesn't matter. So during this conversation with Brian, we had a couple times where my microphone would just mute on its own. And this is clearly not happening today, and it will be fixed for part 2 with our further conversation with Brian. But so there's going to be some stops and starts, and I'll come in and explain where things stopped and then where they picked up again. But here's my conversation with Brian Michael Bendis, including a great Defenders press conference featuring Brian and Dave Marquez and Tom Brevort. The Free Comic Book Day is out. They preview it. And in part 2, we'll talk more about the Free Comic Book Day and also get a general look at the Defenders series along with a whole lot more from Brian. But in this part, Defenders press conference, and also we talk some Jessica Jones, and we talk Spider-Man, because the big announcement came that Brian is picking up the sequel to the Miles Morales Peter Parker first encounter, and how the story has changed, because certainly now they're all in the 616. So, that caused Brian to change the story a bit. He talks about that. And it's a lovely Bendis conversation. Even some new stories that are non-comic related that I think you'll enjoy. Here's a new Bendis Tapes on Word Balloon. Okay, new Bendis Tapes. I'm very happy that this is happening. And this is a layered, this is a parfait Bendis Tapes. Because
this is a layered Bendis Tapes.
You get it, exactly.
A stitched together.
Yeah. Because you just did the press conference today. Hi, Brian. I'm sorry. Brian Bendis, everybody. Brian and
hi, John.
Good to see you, Derek. Good to hear you. Dave Marquez, Brian, and Tom Brevort addressed the press with Marvel and talked about the Defenders, the Free Comic Book Day, and, of course, the ongoing series that follows.
One day soon, I'm going to have David Marquez come over here, and we'll do this together with him.
Yeah, well, I had him and R.J. Ryan talking about the Joiners.
Sure.
Their 3D book and everything. And David's just been busy with the new baby, and I would have had him on.
It's a very, very busy year for David. And, yeah, absolutely. And people know, like, he's never, he missed the deadline, and Civil War went a little late because of the baby.
Sure.
So, but it is a very cute baby.
Well, that's good.
Civil War did get finished, and the baby is good. So everything worked out.
Excellent.
But we'll get him on. He's a fascinating individual, and
smart guy.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Excellent. So, and it was funny too, because we did this press conference and we didn't get the images until after the press conference. They didn't send it to the press, so it was kind of hard to formulate questions and everything. But it was a good conversation.
So I was really talking out of my ass. I love that. Who doesn't love to hear that?
But before we get
talking, people had no idea what I was talking about.
Before we get to that, yes. You've also announced that the Spider-Man sequel is finally happening, and that's great because you left us on a really interesting cliffhanger of Peter back in the 616 takes a look at the internet and says, "Gee, I wonder if there's a Miles Morales here." And then he sees this, "Oh shit," or "Oh no,
what?" Yes. Now, so I was always eager to do this again. And then, the events of the Marvel Universe conspired against it. But it wasn't like, oh, my God, if I don't do this story this year, I'm never going to get to do it. I was like, no, we'll know when it's time. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't, panic too much. I was just like, we'll find out. And it was funny because literally not a week goes by where someone didn't ask me about that page. That last page of Spider-Man. It has eclipsed what's behind the closet door in New Avengers, and it was great, and I loved it. But I did have an answer, and I didn't want to be too cheeky about it online. But I was happy that it always stayed. And then when Miles came to the 616, some people thought the story was over. But when I decided to stay on Miles's book when he came to 616. one of the things was, and then we get to do Spider-Man with them both here, right?
Yeah.
And then follow through with that, and that'll be even more interesting because whatever that mystery is will reveal itself, and Miles isn't going home afterwards. It's going to be here, right?
Sure.
So that got very exciting. And then it just became of when and where, and I kind of knew it was going to be a little times away. So I dropped Peter in the first issue of Miles's book last year, just to, so people know I wasn't going to ignore that they had met.
Sure.
I mean, I wanted people to know where they stood with each other, just so we've laid a little bread base, and then, but building all this time towards what could happen between Peter and Miles if ever they have a big epic emotional mini event for themselves, and here we are.
Very cool. So, and who's the artist?
It's Sarah Pichelli. I wouldn't do it without her.
Very cool.
So she the reason I think people tear up at the first series is because she I think it's a perfect example of her abilities as an artist. So I did tell her that in the first script. I think the first miniseries is the best thing you've ever done. So top that. Wow. And I mean, so just be the best version of yourself you've ever been. And I'm very, very excited about it. And I was working on an issue last night, so it's very fresh on my mind.
Very cool. Where would you, without spoiling, say, the classic line, great power becomes great responsibility. Where's the level of responsibility Peter has when he looks at Miles?
Well, that's it. How much did he feel when it was like, I'm going home to my own dimension, good luck? And how much does he feel now that he's here?
Sure.
And the events in Peter's life as they unfold over the course of this year will alter the relationship between Peter and Miles as well.
Very cool. And do you talk to Slott about this in terms of?
Oh yeah. Well, number one, we have Nick Lowe, who is both of our editors. He's able to look at the bigger picture, not only Peter and Miles, but of all the Spider books.
Yeah.
And really, when you think of, and it is quite amazing that there's this many Spider titles.
Yes.
And they're all unique and all have kind of, why they're being published. Like, sometimes if there's like 16 X-Men books, there's like 3, you go, why are those being published?
Yeah.
Each book needs to thematically identify itself. Like, this is why this story is being told, right?
Yes.
So, Nick's amazing, and he's able to do this with a handful of Spider characters, each of them having an individual, unique voice and take on the world. And so he's the one who balances me and Dan very, very, very shapely. Because, by the way, not only for team-ups and stuff like this, but plots. And, make sure we're all not, that each one's doing something unique and original with their Spider characters. Mm-hmm. We would hate if, like, Peter and Miles both fought Dr. Octopus and beat him up the same way in the same month.
Sure.
That would be crappy editing. But instead we have a masterful editor who has literally been on Ultimate Spider-Man since its heyday, since its Peter Parker heyday. So Nick is great.
That's cool. I just had a long conversation with Dan, and
I know I marked it to listen to.
Oh, thanks,
I saw it this morning. Yes,
because we got into a lot of the other Spider-Verse books and Spider-Gwen and Silk, and and Venom, and it was really interesting to kind of touch base and see what's going on, because I have to confess I haven't been keeping up on all the Spider books. And also I saw Latour.
It's a lot of Spider books.
Yeah, there are a lot of Spider books. I saw Latour at C2E2, and we're long overdue. And you have that nice crossover with Miles and Gwen.
Yeah,
with him. And we talked about that a little
bit. I think I told you I don't know Jason at all. I know some people who listen to these or follow us on Twitter, and sometimes we're all goofing around with each other. They think we all live in a clubhouse or something, like a real world. Particularly the Portland creators, like we all live in a house, right?
Right.
But a lot. Some of us don't know each other at all. Like, I don't know Jason Latour at all, and it was actually Nick's idea to bring us together on that. He goes, "Hey, you guys should do a crossover," and then immediately we got on the phone just to see if there was an idea there. And as soon as we got to the Spider-Gwen would be Miles's girlfriend from Canada that no one's ever met. No, I have a girlfriend. She lives in Canada. You just don't know her. Then we had to do the storyline,
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I didn't know this guy. And we bounced back and forth, and it was absolutely lovely from top to bottom.
Cool.
It was just lovely.
That's great.
It was lovely to work with, and it was just one of those. See, this is why you do stuff like this. Had a completely lovely creative experience with people I didn't know.
Fantastic. That's wonderful.
And you know what? You always hear the bitching, so I like to share when there's a nice thing.
The good stuff. Absolutely, man.
Not going to be a headline story, but I'd like to know. Jason Latour is fun to work with.
Before I forget, with Spider-Man, you've also got the Generations issue, and we talk a little bit about that in our big conversation, our Uber conversation. But
no, so that's good because some people have asked like, what's the difference between like what Spider-Man 2 is and what Generations is, and I have to be careful because there's things about Secret Empire that I shouldn't spoil, right? So I have to be careful. What's going to happen in Generations is real. It's really going to happen. Is a different type of story, and I think the best way I can describe it to fans that are older than 12 is Generations is Peggy Sue Got Married, and Spider-Man 2 is like the best parts of all the other movies.
Which other movies?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
Human Centipede, Mole Bart Cop, whatever that was.
Paul Blart Mall
Cop. The whole Adam Sandler, Happy Madison, all those things.
Okay. Gee, great. That's funny. I have to say, I just saw Peggy Sue Got Married again like a week or two ago on one of the encores. And I'm like, this is better than I remembered it being.
No, it is because it's emotionally honest storytelling. And what I like about it, when I'm referring to when people say how is Generations like Peggy Sue Got Married, it was much more about the emotion of the moment than it was about we got to get it back in time. It's not like the most time travel stories are about shit. I got to get back to my time, right? Whereas this was more about the emotions of what happens if you ever saw what you saw.
Yeah, and she was enjoying herself, and she's like, I'm going to go discover the Beatles. A little shit like that. That was fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so my microphone muted at that point, and we hung up on each other. I unmuted my microphone. We started our conversation again, and we were done talking about Francis Ford Coppola and moved on to a David Mamet story that, frankly, I don't remember Brian telling me. So if he did before, remind me and go, yeah, John, that was actually, last year during a Bendis Tapes. It really seemed like a new story to me, but here's a great David Mamet story encounter that Brian had on that as we pick up our conversation on Word Balloon.
Remember, it was the story I told you about David Mamet casting right next to us?
No.
I never told you this?
I don't think so, man, and thankfully we're recording, so...
All right. So last summer, I would spend my weekdays in Los Angeles at the Powers Writers Room just for a few weeks. And it's in the Sony building, and there's other Sony things going on in the building. And it's actually a very historical building. It's a very cool place to be. And there's a casting office not right down the hall from us. So quite often there would be this parade of types of people. Maybe today they're clearly auditioning blonde people, and then every once in a while there'd be like this pack of like pretty well-known actors are all there for a pretty big gig, like a gig big enough where known actors would audition for, right? Okay. And it was cool, and then we're all in the writers' room, and then Raimi, the showrunner, who I believe you met, came in the room and goes, Brian, David Mamet's in the hallway. And I'm like, what? And then I literally ran in the hallway. Lo and behold, David Mamet and Al fucking Pacino are casting what turned out to be this play that didn't go very well. This Broadway play. It's a two-hander. It's Al Pacino is this crazy billionaire, and he's pretty much just lambasting his assistant the entire play, right?
Okay.
So they're looking to hire the assistant. Mm-hmm. So who is there is these 3 young actors who are the last people who have done so well. They're auditioning for Al Pacino under David Mamet's direction in the room right next to my office. I literally sit in my office and through the air vents listen to Al Pacino yell Mamet dialogue for hours.
Wow.
I recorded it and sent it to Fraction. I was having the best day. The 3 young actors, it's so funny, they're auditioning. They're clearly trying not to be nervous. They're truly trying to support each other and not to think about what they're about to do. But Al Pacino is Al Pacino acting, and the halls are shaking with his voice. Because he's working the character out in the audition, right?
Sure.
So he's like, but it sounds like the guy from Heat, like big ass. It's like that kind of yelling. And so I finally, as I described to you in other podcasts, how badly I screwed up my interview with him at CBR and how embarrassing it was. But it did give me enough of an in to walk into that room and say, hi, I'm Brian Bendis. I actually interviewed you for your graphic novel. David Mamet wrote and drew a graphic novel.
Okay.
And so I walked in and I didn't say, you are my biggest fan, but it was close to something like that. David Mamet, you are my biggest fan. It was, I did it again. I walked right into his office. I don't care what the fuck he was talking about, with my hand outstretched, and took his hand and said, hello, Mr. Mamet. How are you going? Attempted to apologize for an interview he had no recollection of giving.
Oh, man.
And went on my way. It's okay. I finally got to look him in the eye and say thank you. I did it. I walked away. All right. So later on, so I'm getting nothing done. Here's the funny thing. The man who inspires me to do work more than anything in the world is in the room. I can't get anything fucking done. It's hours and hours and hours of listening to Al Pacino scream, and every time someone walks around, blah, blah, blah. They put a note on the door that said, hey, if you're auditioning today, blah, 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 it's signed David Mamet. And I'm like, I have to steal the signed David Mamet sign now. Oh my God. Like, these are all the things that were going on instead of work. And then we were all working in the Powers writers' room. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, still listening.
Okay. We're working in the Powers writers' room, and then we're talking, and all of a sudden you could hear Al Pacino coming towards us in the hallway. You could just hear,
what's going on here?
And we all turned because Al Pacino on his cell phone was like, I don't even know what building I'm in. And then he looks at all of us, and we're all looking at him, and he looks on the walls of what look much like, if you don't know what Powers is, it just looks like fucking madness. It's just like every gross thing Mike ever drew, every image we're trying to recreate for the season, all of which like the big horrifying things, right?
Yeah.
And there's Nazi symbols, and remember there's an episode where Hitler gets killed. There's Nazi symbols and violence and superpowers, and then he just walked away. That was my story, but it was like one of those things where, because of Powers, I got to shake David Mamet's hand and say thank you. You know what I mean? Like, what are the odds of that?
Sure.
Of him being in that building to do that thing.
That right next door. That's insane.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
No,
I literally said, can't wait to tell John I got something for the podcast. Something happened. I left my house and something happened.
That's awesome, man. No, that's huge. Ridiculous. Yeah. Too funny, man.
I nerded out, but I'm sure it was bad.
And people didn't hear the setup, but you sent me the link for the Godfather reunion at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Yes.
And we were talking about that. And like I said, I had read comments and I didn't realize it was Taylor Hackford was the moderator, the great film director. And obviously very happy to be there.
Yeah. No, it's clear. Listen, they're very old men.
Yeah. And
it's
women.
Clearly the last time it's ever going to happen. They don't seem to all like each other all that much to start with. So
interesting,
because they did a Godfather retrospective and there's no mention of the third one.
Well, yeah, isn't that weird?
It's only Godfather 1 and 2 they're talking about.
Well, and Duvall obviously passed and was kind of mad and not feeling like he was being respected money-wise. I know all that.
I know, but it's just funny they won't even talk about it. It's all that was just like something was agreed upon.
Like, where is 3 in your? I mean, granted, it's certainly a lesser film than the other two.
It's like the two Jakes. There's nothing really wrong with it. Its sins are minor, but the fact that it has sins at all is its problem.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
And you know what's funny? And Sofia Coppola is not ready for that movie yet.
Yes.
And she turned into such an excellent filmmaker.
Yes.
It's like you can even kind of forgive that now. Like, yeah, all right.
Sure.
Listen, he put everyone else he's related to in that movie. They all turned into like Academy Award winning people. So
totally.
And so did she.
Yeah.
So he was wrong to hire, but and they even talk about like they hired Talia Shire, and he was about to get fired. From the first movie. Mm-hmm. They talk about it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm only about 15 minutes into it, but already interesting stories, and yeah, like you said, it's interesting to see them all at this age. Whatever willingness they are to interact with each other and stuff. At first, I didn't even recognize James Caan because I kind of blew off the intros, and I'm like, "Who's that to the left of Coppola?"
No, don't blow off the intros. Do not blow off the intros.
Right,
they're as great as that Republican debate where none of them came out. Do not skip the intros.
When politics was still funny. Oh yes. Man, yeah, then I'm right. All right, I'll do that, and I will try and provide a link.
Yeah, okay.
For everybody else.
All right, so back to Spider-Man 2. So yeah, and then we're doing that.
Yes. And we were talking about Peggy Sue Got Married, and it's a very fine film.
Yes, we brought it all back, full Coppola.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That's what inspired the Coppola talk.
Yeah, so anyway, the story of Generation, the story of Spider-Man 2, very different.
Very cool.
Will hopefully pull on different emotional heartstrings.
And then
I'm very excited about Generations because I'm getting to work with Marone Perez, who I'm a big fan of. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
No, he's great. Oh, my God, he's great.
Fan of his Jim Henson graphic novel, The Sand of Time. I think people should check that out.
Tale of Sand, yes.
Tale of Sand, sorry.
No.
Not much for reader. I knew sand was in it.
It's such a great. It's a silent graphic novel, and it's amazing. And I had him on, and Steve Christie as well of Arcadia when they first put it out before they merged with Boom. And it's great. Now Ramon's very cool, good guy.
Yeah,
had the pleasure.
Good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So okay, and also real fast because Generations makes you think also of Legacy. Is something else coming up with you involving Legacy at all?
I am all in on Legacy. I am totally in on Legacy. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say yet, but I'm very into Legacy. I think some people know that there's going to be a return to Legacy numbering on not every title, but some titles. I'm very excited about this because I have written a lot of Spider-Man, and I would like credit for every single issue I wrote. So
I understand. I just had this talk with Dan. Because I was trying to figure out Dan's number of Spider-Man issues, and I'm like, and it's funny because he told me your caveats and Brevort's caveats, and like, am I right?
No,
everything
only
counts.
Brevort's only one with caveats. So this is our funny bugaboo. He thinks like annuals and special issues don't count, and I'm like, any script I handed in that said Spider-Man on the title, it counts.
Yes.
Annuals, miniseries, specials. They all count.
Sure. I agree. I agree. And I know Dan, I think, leans a little towards Brevort, where he's like, yeah, I don't count those. And I'm like I said it to him. I'm like, you're nuts.
Yeah, well, they have drunk the same Kool-Aid many years ago. But they're very much the same kind of person. It's very cute.
I could see fans doing that. I'm sure there are fans that'd be like, yeah, those don't count. So
No, there are. I should say Tom has evidence that he's correct in that what fans think of this, but I don't. I know I worked very hard in every single issue, and I'm counting every single issue.
This is the same kind of conversation I have with Marty Pasco about Superman, because I did a lot of things that were specialty things that only the American Dental Association had. I'm like, yeah, it counts. If you wrote a Superman story, it counts, man, because you put the same effort in, absolutely. So I get it. All right, well, that's
17 years ago, me and Kyle Gossett from the Red Star did a free Spider-Man comic for a product that for the life of me, I couldn't tell you what it is. I count that.
I understand. There you go. Hilarious.
No one's ever seen it. I once wrote 4 custom comics for Marvel for BBDO for our diversity program. They ended up not getting published. No one's ever seen them except for some sections of them I repurposed for other stories, and I count those.
So do you know your count? Where you're at as far as
I don't. I told them what I wanted my count to be, and I didn't. I got my Iron Man count today, which was good.
What's your Iron Man count?
Well, I will be I will be really close to issue 600, which is all I wanted. Now they're not all my Iron Mans; it'd be the total of how many Iron Mans, and we're at like 593 or something.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I get to do like that. That means I got a triple size 600, which I like.
Okay,
like I like the big anniversaries.
Oh, sorry. Is it going to be a $9.99 anniversary issue for Spider-Man?
Sounds like a great place for Tony Stark to wake his ass up and shave and.
Oh, very nice. Well, that's
make
good.
a new suit or something. Seems like we gotta. I mean, right?
All right.
Like right there. It's like sitting there. I'm going to do 602.
I understand. That's and again, you'll hear more about the Iron Man runs and artificial intelligence Tony Stark in the conversation later on. But let's see, because and I was going to say Jessica Jones. I wanted to.
Yeah, we should remind people this is a hodgepodge patchwork of conversations.
Yes.
That we're stitching together to make it seem like it was like one fluid conversation, but weeks have passed.
True.
Lives have changed.
Well, books have come out. I mean, that's really because literally we finished our conversation and all of a sudden, like the last time we talked, we were at Jessica Jones 6 and then 7 came out. I'm like,
wow.
Damn it. I wanted to talk about that because
I'm writing 10 tonight.
Oh, very cool. I loved David Mack's cover. Showing, I always forget Jessica and Luke's baby's name.
Danny. Remember Danny Rand, Daniel Cage.
Of course it's Danny. That makes sense. Yeah. And again, this will bridge our Defenders press call in a second. But, yes. I love the fact that we're getting a clearer definition of the Jessica and Danny Rand Iron Fist relationship. It
was one of those things I was like looking at over everything, like prepping for Defenders. I had a great deal of time, like a year and a half, to prep for Defenders, which is such a gift. It really is. Cool. It never happens, and I was making lists of things I hadn't seen or things I could have done better, and I realized I hadn't really ever established Danny and Jessica's relationship. Because I don't think they ever had, you know what I mean. There was never a moment where they could have turned to each other and kind of had a moment. And so I said, well, let's. I like when people talk about their non-relationship way into the relationship. I like in real life when you establish why you're not closer.
Sure, no, I understand. That's a real thing.
And yeah, it is. It is a real thing. And it's also, I get excited when I think of, like, I've never seen that in a comic. I don't think I've ever seen someone, not like anyone's dying for it, but I like when anytime you think of an image or just a small moment, I'm like, I can't remember ever seeing that in a comic or even on TV, So
no, and
go for it.
In your Daredevil run, there were moments like that between Matt and Dakota North. Or Dakota explaining her relationship to Matt as she guarded him or Milla or whoever during the story. So, no, I like those things. And again, certainly it makes sense with Defenders coming up and everything to kind of reestablish where they all are.
We establish everyone also, this Jessica run, on top of just being great to be writing Jessica again, it was a good kind of getting my feet wet for Defenders, like, reestablishing myself with the characters, putting Luke's shoes back on, just getting to them all. So, it worked out really well.
Excellent. All right, now, for listener purposes, we're going to cut to the press conference now, and then we're going to have a little after thing that I can talk a little bit more, because this stuff is discussed during the press conference, and then I can now have the opportunity to talk to Brian a bit more, especially since I've seen some more of the art, to understand how things look, and things that are referenced in terms of the way the book is laid out that I wanted to refer to. So here's
sure. While you're doing that, also remember, you're not going to hear me for the first few minutes because I don't know how to dial a landline. So while you're listening to David and Tom talk and I'm not there, just realize that I have now dialed the phone 7 times trying to call in to a conference call.
There were a lot of awkward pauses during the press conference as they were trying to figure out if you were there or not, but that's all been cleaned up. We get right.
Oh, leave them in. Leave them. I want to hear them.
It really is like awkward where it's like, waiting for Godot.
I didn't know that. That makes it a lot because I kind of came in like a hurricane. I felt bad afterwards because I was so full of nervous energy from being late, which I hate being, because I wasn't late. I was there on time, but I wasn't having any luck with the phone.
No, I understand. Ben is, I believe it was Ben that was running things, not Chris Delandra today. No, excuse me, Joe. It was Joe.
No, Chris had to excuse himself from his job, which I did not know at the time of the call. So
Joe Tarabelli ran the press conference, and eventually he's like, "All right, Brian's not there. All right, let me talk to Tom and David and stuff." So it went fine, and then all of a sudden you'll hear Brian kind of rush in. Hey, sorry. So here we go. Here's the Defenders press conference. And then we'll come back and have some afterthoughts. But I also
thought it was interesting that Marvel never called on the New York Times or USA Today.
We might as well get started on this. I don't want to take up anyone's day on this. So I just want to welcome everybody. We're going to be doing our Defenders Next Big Thing call. On the phone line, we've got Brian Michael Bendis, the illustrious Brian Michael Bendis. He likes that. David Marquez is on the line, and then I also am sitting next to the wonderful Tom Brevort. And with that, we're just going to start off some conversations. We'll be providing artwork after the fact, and then we're going to open it up to everybody to ask a couple of questions at the end of this. So to start with this, and kicking it off to Brian to start it on this, considering your previous run with like New Avengers, you're so well familiar with tackling Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Daredevil, and then now you get the chance to put them all together. Is this the exact team that you really wanted to go back to? Brian, still there? Did we lose him?
Anybody there?
Is anyone there? We heard some people.
David. This is David. David's here. Yeah.
David's there. All right.
Okay.
Good. All right.
I'm texting Brian real quick. Yeah.
Well, here, let's do this. Hey, David, while I've got you on the phone here, one thing that I guess really kind of stands out, too, is, when we read the first issue as well, and I'm just really coming from my own personal preference, or just what I saw was every time you kind of really focused on each character, there was a great visual tone to each character. Are we going to be seeing that throughout the entire issue or throughout the entire series? Does everybody have their own tone? And, really, what tone are you bringing to the new Defenders run?
I think it's probably easiest to answer that question in terms of just contrasting Defenders as a whole to Civil War II as a whole. I'm really proud of the work that Justin and I did on Civil War II, but Defenders is a very different kind of book. It's much more intimate. It's street level, obviously. It's a smaller cast, although still pretty large cast, but nowhere near the size of Civil War II, which literally had all of the toys from the toy box out to play with. Looking at, Defenders, it's a much, kind of a grittier, more, noir book, for lack of a better term to use. And the punchline that Brian and Justin and I kind of came down to is kind of leaning heavily on kind of the neo-noir look. So, looking at things like Blade Runner or John Wick as some inspiration. Certainly in terms of color palette and use of contrast and shadow and that kind of stuff. I'm also playing a lot with texture in the art in a way that I wasn't really doing so much with Civil War II, and I think a lot of that is trying to really draw attention to and emphasize the fact that this is again a street level book, and specifically the streets we're talking about are New York, Bronx, Hell's Kitchen, Brooklyn. And we really wanted the city itself to be a character as well, both in terms of the people of the city, but also just the architecture. The water towers and the fire escapes and all this kind of stuff. The brick, the grit, all that stuff. And Justin and I have been working very closely together to try and find a way where things I'm playing with in the art, in the line art and black and white art, is also something that he's able to play in equal ways in the color to match up. So those are just some of the things that we're playing with. In terms of the individual characters, if for the book as a whole, I'm playing a lot with, the grittiness and all of that comes across with a New York story. One thing that I enjoy doing a lot in my work, and I think that a lot of readers respond to, is the character work, the emotion, the acting, and that's something that's going to be carrying through just as strongly in this book as anything else I've worked on.
Good. And anybody who actually lives in New York knows that the city is a character in itself. So it's always good to walk down the streets and actually kind of see that actually reflected within the book. Tom, you actually, you're gatekeeper. You're corralling all of this. So with that, is that something that you really wanted to implement here, or are you really kind of giving free reign to Brian, Justin, and David?
I've sort of deferred to them in terms of defining what the particular look and style of the book is, what the tone is. Mm-hmm. What the flavor is. It's a series that demands sort of a slightly different approach visually than, as David said, certainly Civil War II, and even before that, Invincible Iron Man, which was a very sleek, sort of polished metal kind of, futuristic, sophisticated look. It's actually a gear that I don't think people have seen David do before. The actual rendering line and the use of tone and texture. It's got a little bit more Bill Sienkiewicz in it than I think people are used to thinking when they think about David's work. And I think it really suits the sort of characters and the sort of world they inhabit and move through in a very immediate sort of a way. So it definitely, you see David and then by extension Justin, stretching in terms of what your expectation is, that they can do, or the kind of thing that they do. They got more gears to use than you might expect or anticipate.
Cool. Brian,
just to elaborate on a point. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just talking with Brian. He's still trying to get on. I just wanted to elaborate on a point that Tom brought up, which was some of the other artistic influences. So I'm definitely leaning pretty heavily on some of the previous artists who've worked on Daredevil specifically, also the whole Heroes for Hire, street level New York character kind of set of characters. Sienkiewicz comes to mind. Alex Maleev, who worked with Brian on Daredevil, is a huge influence. Actually, a lot of the recent artists on Daredevil have been a huge influence on me. Chris Somney, Paulo Rivera. So a lot of the stuff I'm bringing to the art hopefully harkens back to some of the highlights we've seen artistically in the series in the past.
Tom, one thing that I know that has been solicited already, but we will be seeing Punisher actually dive into the book starting with issue 3. The one question that I kind of had with this is, yes, we do have a very street level tone to the book, and we know that these heroes are both kind of on the same road, but maybe in different lanes. Is it going to be are they leaning towards the same endpoint or the same goal here? What do you want to tease Punisher's role within Defenders?
Well, I think that the core Defenders are all moving in generally the same direction. They've got a unity of purpose, a commonality of goal. There'll be plenty of other characters that pass through the book, and not always the characters that you'd immediately think of when you think of a street level book. Certainly, the Punisher is kind of a natural fit in among these characters as somebody to pass through. But in the first couple of issues, we also have Blade, and we also have a couple of other surprises that I don't necessarily want to spoil ahead of time. For all that this is, we talk about it as a noir book or a street level book or whatnot. This is a book that takes place in the Marvel Universe, and that means at any given point, Spider-Man can swing by, or Iron Man can fly overhead, or things that come from the larger Marvel Universe can enter into this world. So it's not just going to be of one sort of thing. I think thinking about it in the manner of New Avengers is kind of right. New Avengers team, particularly in the latter days of that run when they were working out of Avengers Mansion, were very much, heroes on the ground sort of a crew. And the Defenders kind of take that idea and take that forward. So it wouldn't be out of sorts to see Doctor Strange pass through. It wouldn't be out of sorts to see, characters of a wider background than you might expect to put an appearance in Defenders and to be a piece of that.
Yeah, it's New York.
This is the writer of New Avengers, and I disagree with everything he just said. That was
All right.
all right. That was right on the money. Again, I'm sorry, guys. I was dialing a landline phone seemed to be beyond me today. I apologize.
How are you doing, Brian?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's Joe. So I think let's do, we kind of already dove into this, but the elements of, you've had experience writing, like as we just touched on, these characters. You've got Luke Cage, Jeff, Iron Fist, Daredevil. They all appear within your New Avengers run. Is this really the team that you wanted? Yes, it's kind of been kind of corralled because of other mediums kind of taking them on, but is this who you wanted? Is this who you want to see within your book? And do you want to...
Listen, I'm on record. This is the best part of this is that I literally pitched this to the public on my last page of New Avengers.
Yeah.
Is a page of Luke and Jessica talking about this book. And it was always on my list of this is what I would like to do if I return to these characters. And at the same time, these characters and sometimes the version that I'm most connected to were becoming big TV stars, and all the pieces fell into place. And really the only thing that I think that probably changed from my initial idea of the book was just calling it Defenders. Like we didn't have a great name. And thanks to Jeff kind of, recommandeering that name from publishing to make it this, it certainly helps. But this idea and these characters and how they're going to interact and what they're going to do, that this was always the plan. So I'm on record way before the Netflix deal of this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I remember when we worked on that page, the script actually had at the very end, coming soon, Heroes for Hire.
Yeah.
Or
something.
We weren't sure when it was going to come.
Yeah, no, I believe it said coming soon, Heroes for Hire, or a better named version. It actually is, because it's not actually about heroes being hired for anything.
Yes.
We should have a team just called TBD.
Now that you said that, I want Defenders to have an adjective.
Tom Brevor's Defenders.
Tom Brevor's Defenders.
There you go.
All right.
There you go. And speaking about that, since you...
how about instead of All New Defenders, how about TV's Defenders? How about that?
You were talking about, obviously, since your end on New Avengers, these characters themselves have evolved past so many things. In the pages of Civil War II especially, and now we're going into Secret Empire. But, where are all these characters right now when Defenders #1 is going to be coming out?
Well, it's to rewind to where are the Defenders when the first chapter comes out, which is this Saturday, Free Comic Book Day. And the characters are all at their kind of like their base status quo. You've got Luke at Heroes for Hire. You got Danny Rand at the Rand Corporation. You got Matt Murdock, being a lawyer. You got Jessica taking on a new client. And the client that Jessica takes on reveals themselves to have done something pretty heinous, which was go after each one of our main heroes using information there's no way they could have. The Free Comic Book Day story reveals who the big villain is for the storyline. It reveals what he or they are capable of, and it starts off our story with a big whopper. And then we dive right into the not free, Defenders #1, which is the opposite of free, and we hit the ground running.
Awesome. And then David and kind of already touched on this point too, but you guys both collaborated on really Civil War, and really just talking about the difference between it's pie in the sky, it's all the characters of the Marvel Universe during Civil War. As Tom kind of elaborated, the tone that we've got with Iron Man is polished, very sleek. But from your standpoint, Brian, how do you see the tone of Defenders, and in your own words?
I try to bring as much realism and humanity to it as humanly possible. It's really the goal. It's what I've It's kind of back to what I kind of came to Marvel with in the first place. I had spent, so many of my formative years doing crime fiction, which is people on the streets making choices, but it's all in a world that we recognize, like it's the world right outside our door. The escapism is much more visceral because you feel like this is a bar you could walk into, not some crazy space station or Avengers Tower. This is like, these feel like real places, and sometimes they really are real places. So there's just an immediacy to the escapism because you could dress up like Jessica or Luke and walk into a bar, So I try to give it that, and with that, the characters are really reacting to each other. They're really reacting to the world around them. David and I spend a great deal of time talking about the city as a character and making sure that they interact with that character in a natural human way. And that's what has brought me some of my best times as a writer, and I love it. Honestly, I'm having such a good time writing this book, and I'm so challenged by it that I know people have seen me online. Just me and David are constantly like tweeting things because we're so excited to tell people what we've done, because it's the beginning of what we think will be a very big chapter for us and the characters.
And David was actually talking about this as well as Tom, that New York really does hold itself as a character. Do you think that New York is really going to be kind of like a partner to the Defenders, or more of an antagonist to them?
Well, that's the best thing about treating the city like a character, because like any character in any story, you don't know. Like sometimes the city's going to be gigantic help to them, and because they are part of that city, and people who live in a city this size or even less of this size, they know it's almost like an organism that that can spit you out or chew you up or help you, and because Luke and Matt and Danny particularly have had such a good reputation on the streets and the dangerous reputation on the streets, that the city reacts accordingly. The good people are thrilled to see them and will help them at any case. There's not a person in the city that doesn't feel like these people haven't saved their lives, and at the same time, there's also people in the street who will react very negatively to what they're doing. So the city itself is a pushback. Now, in issue 3, we're going to start what is kind of like a signature piece of the series, which is that the city itself will narrate part of the story. Like the people of the city will tell you what they think of the Marvel Universe and what their version of the history of the streets is. So we're going to have the opportunity to fill in some younger readers about some of the rich history of the characters, but not in a clunky way, in a way that really kind of shows how the city has been built by the legacy of these characters. Awesome. And by the way, you got two things, really. You've got two characters. You've got the real New York City. You got the New York City that we all know and I love to visit. And then we have the Marvel New York City, which is, there's a New York City with Doctor Strange in it and Blade running around and Elektra and the Avengers. And so you look up in the sky and there's stuff that's different than the real world, but it's so the real world that you can't help but react to it in the real way.
And I think, speaking to that too, I mean, as you said, you've got the Marvel New York, and then you have that intimate real New York where it is very down on the ground. I think actually you mentioned maybe in the past that the Defenders themselves, like this series is going to be very personal, again, like for everybody and every individual character. Is that something you can elaborate on, how personal is this going to be per character?
Yes, the villain is connected very personally to one of the four, so personally that it affects all of them. The actions of that character right away in the Free Comic Book Day are so in-your-face personal. It's such a personal attack that they can't help but push back and kind of have to decide to reinvent the rules of how they do things. And by doing so, they decide to make the Defenders an official thing that they are, that this person is so scary and this person is such an affront to the cities and the boroughs of New York that they decide as a team, we need to stand as a group and tell the world, at least this city, we got ya. You know, so this person's actions change everything about how they interact with each other and the city.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying another thing. You know, it's been a very fun week of readers emailing or tumbling questions at me, and one of the best questions last night was, you know, I'm so confused about Luke Cage because, according to everything, he's like one of the most powerful superheroes in the world. He's like an Omega level superhero, but they keep referring to him as street level. But I can't think of a fight that he's lost, right? And I wrote back, you know, street level is not a power set, it's an address. And for people who think when they think street level, it's just people like Daredevil is going to get the crap beat out of him, but still he'll win. It's more than that. There's real people with power. There's real scenarios of people trying to gain power and or take away power. There's, you know, the best creepy thriller, science fiction, bladeness of this world is all on the streets. So it's not just crime fiction, it's also science fiction, it's also horror, whatever you want to categorize things of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man's nature are. And much like Avengers and my time on Avengers, the book is already revealed. There's so many places to take these characters within the context of the street level heroes. There's so many new and interesting things. On top of which, and I'm sorry to babble, but this is something I was trying to tell everybody about returning to the characters after a while, is that this is one of the great joys of staying at the company, is that you can like leave Jessica for a few years, come back, and the character is still reacting to the world around her. And the Marvel Universe shifts so much changes, just like the real world, that I come back to Jessica or Luke Cage, and the relationship is different. The relationship to each other is different. The relationship to the world is different. Some of it's stronger, some of it weaker, but all worth exploring. So I'm writing like all new material about these characters that I love so much and I've spent so much time with, but because they're in a different place in their life, it feels brand new to me.
And that's the advantage, really, with these characters themselves. I mean, with you at the helm, too, they're very organic. They react in the same way that somebody else on the street's going to react. They react to any real-world scenarios. And they all have these, like, strong personalities that can't help to adjust to whatever they say. And really with that, I think a good question to ask, too, is, I mean, with such strong personalities that you're putting together within a team, is a leadership role going to be established, or are we going to see something like that, or is it really going to be everybody working together cohesively?
Well, it's kind of like what I liked about the new Avengers. Everyone kind of steps up when it's their turn. Like it kind of becomes the leader of the mission is whoever brought it to the table or whoever has the best sense of whatever they're doing, you know? They're not like membership ID kind of people. It's a handshake. You know, you're in. There's no contracts. They're in together, and it speaks more to the fact that they really are a family. And I know that's something that gets bandied around about in a Fast and Furious kind of weird way, but they love each other. And you know, I just wrote a piece. I guess we should talk about this too. That you know, every issue is going to have this some backup material. And the first issue is the backup is an interview with Luke Cage, where you kind of get a sense of where he's at and what he thinks about these things. And in it, he talks about, you know, that a lot of the superhero community, you know, they made their own family. They found each other on the streets, and they found each other in the sky, and they become friends. And then you know, while you're building yourself up as a protector of the city, you meet other people who want to do the same thing, and all of a sudden you turn around and you find out you have friends and a family that you built yourself. And the good thing about Defenders is they've already built that, where they're already a family. So now, as a family, we get to see what they're going to do. And with that comes all the positives and negatives of family, which is they trust each other immensely. Also, they know each other very well, so they know how to get each other's nerves extremely well. They know where all the buttons are. But yeah, I don't want to skip over that. So every issue, on top of being a full story, we're going to bring back the Pulse, but in a way that is kind of like what we did back on the old Secret Wars series, where there was backup that accentuated the storyline with new material in a new way. Also, it's not unlike what we did with the oral history of Avengers years ago, where it's going to be just a way to really dive into the characters in unique and special ways. And we wanted the Defenders to have something special. And Ben Urich and the Daily Bugle and what's been going on in Jessica Jones with Luke and Jessica is a big part of the story as well. So we're going to bring back the Pulse, and not as a comic book, but as a feature, this part of the Daily Bugle that focuses on superheroes on the streets. And we're going to get Ben and his team's perspective on everything that's happening.
That is incredible, and I cannot wait for that.
And I love writing them. Tom just read my first one this morning, and he knows it's like writing fake magazine articles for a magazine you wished you owned.
Yeah,
that's amazing. More bang for your buck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought, with fans would like to know they're getting a little more for their money with Defenders than normal. We're pretty excited about that.
And then I think we're going to go back to one question that we kind of already asked and we touched on. With issue 3, we've already solicited that Punisher is going to be coming into the title. Tom elaborated that this exists within the Marvel Universe. You'll see heroes flying over top. There will be heroes that are all over the place. With the addition of the Punisher coming in here, we kind of talked about like the general mission statement towards the book itself, where the team itself is kind of in the same path. But now with the addition of Punisher, is he kind of going in the same direction, just in a different lane? Is he kind of taking on his own way of how to handle justice? How did you really want to handle the Punisher within Defenders?
Well, the overall part is, and talking to the larger piece of what the book is like, is what happens in the first couple issues of Defenders is so loud that it can't help but bring people towards it. It can't help but bring the Punishers of the world towards it, and it speaks to the level of danger that's happening on the streets with the new elements that have arrived. With one new element, the Punisher will interact with Defenders in a way that will surprise people because it speaks to the level of the mystery behind who our big villain is. But yeah, so not only the Punisher, but there are certain spider people that are going to show up. Blade shows up. Doctor Strange shows up. A couple of mutants show up. There's so many surprises coming. Night Nurse. I know we have some Night Nurse fans that particularly loved our Night Nurse from our new Avengers. She will be back. That of course hints that a lot of people get hurt, but that's what she's for. And that's we're going to really open up the streets and have a lot of people come in. So the 4 are like the base, but the rest of the Marvel Universe will react to them, and there will be members that will come in and out in a hopefully organic way.
I love that.
Yeah, it's very much like what Brian said earlier. This is not a group that really is worried about bylaws or worried about who's a member or who's not a member. So there'll be a sort of free-flowing, exchange of characters that come in and go out as the situation demands it or as the story demands it.
It's hard to imagine Luke Cage taking like minutes at a meeting. So I just think it's like. Are we gonna take minutes at a meeting, or are we all just gonna get Chinese food and talk the shit out and figure it out? Yeah. It's just based on the personality.
I think Danny brings the donuts. Iron Fist.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, I just assume it's a lot of just like awkwardly waiting for Danny to pick up the check.
And I mean, you guys really kind of hit on the idea that we're going to see so many guest stars coming in on this. Now, obviously, you've got a name and a legacy of the name Defenders added to this book. Anybody from existing or previous Defenders popping in?
Yes. You can imagine that being that there was another Defenders team that I quite loved, that they might not be thrilled that their name has been poached. So look for some Defender on Defender action down the line. Not in the first storyline, but
That'd be great. Cool.
Look for the long overdue Jessica Jones versus the Silver Surfer, the Hulk, and Valkyrie fight.
That's coming up. And with that, I think what I want to do is I kind of want to open this up to questions for everybody here. So Marvel.com, Ben, do you have anything to ask?
No, I don't think we're going to do questions this time, Joe. We're just going to listen to everyone else. Okay,
great.
He didn't write a question.
I know Ben's normal questions. It's okay. CBR.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, CBR.
Ryan, I'm curious to hear about your take on Daredevil in the series, because obviously that's the character that you wrote for a very long time. But at this point, a very long time ago, and the character has been through a lot and is in a very different place now. What's interesting to you about writing Daredevil in 2017?
Well, it's one of the most exciting and scariest things because, and this is as high class a problem as any creator could have, because when you're associated with a run on a character, sometimes people can even remember it with rose-colored glasses. You know what I mean? Like, people think fondly of it, and that's very, very nice. But then you're kind of responsible for how people perceive you and the character, which you're not totally, you couldn't possibly be totally in connection with. So I've decided to forget about all that, forget about my first run, forget about everything I did, just let it, it's all in the past, and in those moments mean the world, and just come at the character as if it's the first time I've ever written him. I'm thrilled with what Charles is doing with the character and the paces that he's putting him through. It creates an amazing platform from which I can build his relationships in this book. Charles and I are very much on the same page about what's happening, and you know, and the same thing with Jessica. I just I have such long history with these characters, and I think, not talking out of school, but I think Tom knows what we're talking about. Where sometimes when a creator comes back to a character, they seem to not even know that anything else has happened to the character since last they came back. Sometimes older creators will pitch a sequel to something that lets you know that they've not read a comic since 1977. And that's a trap and a mistake that I think the best way to handle is to ignore the fact that I've worked on these characters before and earn my place on them, just like I did the first time, which is to write as honestly and purely and into their soul as I possibly can. Not to sound cheeky, but that really is what the job is. And remember that the work I did on these characters beforehand, not everyone will have read. So to count on it for brownie points with readers is a huge mistake, and just to take it as if it's the first day I've ever had the job, which, by the way, isn't a bad philosophy to have with every single issue that you write. Every time you start a new book, you say, this is the first time I'm ever writing these characters. Let's dive in and do the best job we can.
Love that. Cool. Adventures in Portes. David?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Adventures in Portes, you've been very, very nice to us, and I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate it. It's been thoughtful, not only nice, but thoughtful and nice, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for saying that. That's really nice of you. I had a question in regards to, based on your interview with The Hollywood Reporter, where you mentioned you're going to be writing the mob in a modern way. Can you go into more detail about that? I mean,
listen, this and so what was the question? I'm sorry. What was the last part?
Oh, I was just gonna go a little further, but you could just go right off and rip off that.
Oh no, keep going. Finish your question. I'm sorry, I got excited about it.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to ask. Okay, so can you go into more detail about that, and what might we expect from a modern telling of organized crime?
Well, so it's safe to say that Frank Miller's DNA was still on Daredevil and the streets of Daredevil, even when I was on Daredevil. Like it still trickles into Daredevil and other books, and some of that stuff is decades old now, and some of it is even hearkening back to something from decades before that, like a more classic mob mentality or street level look at stuff. But if you really watch what's been going on in organized crime and just crime in general since even 9/11 up until now, things have a different shape, and there's different types of players, and they're doing different kinds of business. And with technology comes new problems and new ways to scam people, and that stuff doesn't always make it into literature right away, not just comics, but even in movies and television. It's kind of a slow on the uptake because they want to give people stuff they're familiar with, which is like a mob boss and a femme fatale and thugs. And I do it too. It's a lot of fun to write, but with this opportunity to, like, the plans that organized crime has right now are a little more elaborate, and they're quite a few steps ahead of the FBI and stuff. And I just thought, let's push this whole thing forward. Let's with a new element coming into the streets, it gives us an opportunity to kind of reestablish what the streets of Marvel look like, who the players are and what they want and what kind of territory they're going to grab and who's going to be on what side and who's going to benefit the most from each player. All of this is worth re-examining and really kind of like starting, almost laying down tracks from scratch, so new readers who are coming in from the Netflix shows will kind of have their own New York to dive into, not unlike they do on the shows. Now, it's going to be very different from the one on the shows, but, the one on the show has its own way it breathes, and we're going to have our own as well. And what that entails, the second part of your question, what that entails, you're going to find out very, very quickly. But it's basically, there's one character who's going to flip the script on all the superheroes and all the way that things are done on the street. And there's the way things have been done, and they're going to come in and show a new way to do it, and it's going to throw everything into chaos.
And Brian's passion for organized crime is something that has impacted me as well, because when we started talking about doing this book, he literally gave me a pile of like 8 or 10 books to read all about the history of organized crime in New York and Chicago. So he made me do the homework that he's been doing too.
Yeah, and well, I just want you to the flavor of it is so exciting, and also sometimes you'll read stories and go, well, that is crazy, but it really happened, and it will make our crazy seem less crazy. That's always my feeling about that. When you find out what the mob was doing in the early '60s, you're like, oh, this is nothing.
That's the goal, isn't it? Make your crazy seem less crazy.
Yeah, that's my life philosophy, by the way.
With that word balloon, John.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, John.
Excellent. Tom, you've had other street level teams in the last few years. Obviously, the Defenders have a pedigree, and certainly these characters working together. Brian using them in New Avengers and doing stuff currently in Jessica Jones. We see established relationships and how they attack the streets. Comparing this book to the Ultimates and the Champions and things like that, what do these characters say that those teams don't?
Well, I think in a way, it's a more intimate book. It's a more personal book. Its scope is smaller in that it's more focused on the neighborhood, even if the neighborhood is as big as the whole of Manhattan Island. In the same sort of way that, when I think of classic Spider-Man, Fantastic Four or the Avengers would go off and have adventures in other countries or other planets, other dimensions, and Spider-Man would be dealing with the no-good-nicks in and around Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn and this sort of thing. So I think the core of the book and the core of the team is going to have a very different tone than any other group book that exists right now, at least within the Marvel universe. That it's a very tightly knit group of people with a common cause, and who are sort of, again, operating down on the ground on the same level as the people that they're working to help and protect. There's a little more of for lack of a better term, a Zorro aspect to it, where these are really the heroes of the community rather than the heroes of the planet. And in some ways, that makes their efforts much more personal, even to the people that are around them, whether it's people that like them because they're out there putting their lives on the line for them, or people that don't like them so much because they're getting in the way of them making a dishonest buck or two.
Can I put Zorro on the team? Is Zorro available?
Yes, issue 6, Zorro.
Zorro is a good pitch. And also, one of the things we talk about, John, and one of the things I think does separate this book from the other books is that, what's going on in the streets is sometimes the stuff that really affects people, like, right away, like immediately. And the people that are trying to rob and steal from those people need help immediately, and they need help that is more than the cops and firemen can give them. And the reaction to the defenders is going to be more intimate and personal because of that. They're right there. Like Luke has an address that people know. Mm-hmm. Jessica has an office. There's going to be different public reactions to different characters at certain times. What Tom said, the intimacy between these characters in the streets is very unique to any Marvel book I've ever written.
Cool.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've got this weird vision of like at least twice a week. What Luke and Jessica have for dinner is something that somebody has just brought over. In fact, here's a roast. Here's a thing I did. Thank you for what you do, and that's again that's part of that sort of community flavor. They're people of the people.
I get it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And we're going to get to a pies don't pay the bills moment. That's
awesome. Newsarama, George, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. I actually have a question. Hello, I have a question for David. Actually, I want to talk about your process in defining a visual identity for each of these characters. When half of them are kind of in street clothes, how do you make that look like a superhero while maintaining that street level edge?
For each of the characters, I mean, whether they're wearing spandex or like leather and denim, it's still a costume, it's still a uniform, and the way in which they carry themselves in those clothes becomes as much part of their character as a mask or anything else. So for Jessica Jones, everyone knows a leather jacket, and that's a very easy visual go-to. For Luke Cage, now we have the hoodie as being a nice kind of visual touch to remind ourselves of kind of who this character is. So kind of the example that I think about is we look at cartoons from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Oftentimes, when the characters were in civilian clothes, there were still unrecognizable clothes that were there. Or even back, looking at the way Peter Parker was drawn by Romita, back in the day, he had a certain set of looks for him where he's still recognizable that character. And you can do the same thing with them. With a nice modern styled outfit, but the other thing that's kind of always surprising about these projects, as after moving off Miles Morales, have kind of bounced from project to project every 5 to 10 issues, is they kind of take on a life of their own, where ideas I may have about how I want to draw the book and how I may want to draw the characters change over time as the characters start kind of talking to me about how they want to be presented. A big part of that is from the script and the conversation with Brian, conversation with Justin and with Tom. Also, it's just time on the page, just scratching away and finding out that actually, what makes Jessica look like Jessica is not just that she wears a leather jacket, but it's how she wears the jacket. It's not just the fact that Luke Cage, has his facial hair cut in a certain way or wears certain articles of clothing. It's the way he stands in front of someone to take the punch when the person can't take it. It's that kind of stuff. So, it's a living, breathing process.
Cool.
And that makes me happy to hear, because it's kind of what happens in the writing process as well. And you kind of want to put it, it's so ethereal, but you want it in the script so your collaborators will feel that as well. And then as he's drawing, they start to become real as well. It bodes well for the the book and how people react to it if we're both feeling so connected, you know?
Yes. Cool. Comics verse. Is it Justin or Kat?
Hi, it's Kat.
Hey.
Hi, Kat.
Hey, okay, so my question is, hi. So since the Defenders are a street-level team and with the city being its own character, can we expect the team to tackle any real-world issues or any metaphors of real-world issues?
Well, metaphors for sure. Metaphors. I got a bag full of metaphors. I'm ready to drop on everybody. And the real world issues will stem from each character's individual place in the world. You know, Luke is going to react to the world from who he is and where he stood, and you know, and so will Danny and Jessica, and part of what makes them a very good team is they have a very diverse perspective, diverse experiences. Even though some of them are shared, they came away from an experience with two different things, and with that will come the real world stuff. So yes is the thing. And by the way, crime is a real world issue in general. Just people trying to take your shit is a real world issue.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. That's a big one.
Yeah. Comicbook.com, Jamie.
Hey, I was wondering, with all the talk of how intimate the book is and how most of the characters have a public address, how that affects Daredevil's role in the book, given that he's kind of the exception to the rule, and how that affects his relationship with the others.
Excellent question. A very good question. You're going to find these characters are in such a dangerous position that even though he's one of your good friends, that guy in the devil mask might need to give a little more than just devil mask if you're going to hang out here. So the respect of each other's individuality and what they want to represent to each other and what secrets they want to share with each other will be a part of that. Obviously I have a tendency to really take those secret identities very seriously and dangerously. And obviously Daredevil being the most ballsy move we've ever made on something like that. And all I'll say is we're going to continue down that road of a secret identity is not something that's going to be taken lightly. It's going to be something very difficult to maintain and difficult to maintain with friends. So we'll take it from there. But I do think that is something very interesting to delve into. Is when you have a lot of trust between characters, but one of them won't get out of the devil mask. There's going to be a conversation.
It'd be really mean of us to Charles if as soon as he finishes the story where he explains how Daredevil got his secret identity secret again, we had him unmasked to the world again.
Sounds very. It doesn't sound mean as a more typical me than anything.
Yeah. Sounds right. IGN. Jesse, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, guys. So you talked already about how the general idea for this book predates all the Netflix stuff by a number of years. But I guess I'm curious if there's anything specific about those shows in terms of either characterization or just visual style that you really like and you might want to incorporate here.
Well, yeah, I'm on record as a gigantic fan of what they've done, and also, they've been very, very open and honest about. Even my name is thanked in almost every episode about how much material is in the DNA of those shows that came from some of our stuff, right? So I'm immensely flattered by it, and at the same time happy that that stuff was used to build a building block that would get us this book in the shape that it's in. So it kind of is the best version of Marvel becoming this multimedia empire that produces its own movies and television shows, is that it all kind of flowed out of the comics into the TV and then the TV back into the comics, but not in a way that anyone's imitating anyone. That's the cool stuff. Now, as far as the visual stuff goes, and David will of course speak to this, but I'm a huge fan of the cinematography that's going on in those shows. I've said so very clearly. The stuff that went on in Jessica with the little slivers of purple light was phenomenal. I love the look of Daredevil so much it gives me chills. I love it. So, but the reason I love it is because I love the stuff that inspired it. I love the films and television shows and the cinematographers that made those stuff, and we've been applying a lot of that philosophy to our work over the years. So we're going to do that more. Now, one of the things that we applied to Daredevil was this idea, this neo-noir, this look that David and Justin had toyed with a little bit in some issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, where we flash back to Miles' father's early days on the streets, and David had, produced this more noir style that is kind of like the forefather to what he's doing in this book here. So I'd already seen what David and Justin could do on the streets, or a version of it, and using that as our template to start this book, and then using all of these cool noir tricks that the shows use, and it's just an exciting mix.
Adding
David,
on that,
sorry. I kind of answered for you. I'm sorry, David.
Yeah.
No. I mean, he did cover a lot of the ground. But one thing that Justin and I both really respond to is the use of color on the shows. Now, we didn't want to just copy what they do. Just as whenever you face with a comic that's also being exploited in other media, be it animation, TV, film, video games. If they do things well, it's good to learn from those things and to borrow where appropriate, or at least make sure that if a reader happens to come to the Defenders comic having seen the Netflix shows and seeing these are the same characters, it's good to have some elements of it being recognizable, but also to be additive and not just repetitive of what they've already seen. So we're taking some of the things that are done well on the show, things like they shoot the city beautifully, they use amazing use of color, the costuming, the lighting's all gorgeous, and we're going to borrow some of those things if we think it adds to the quality of the book. We also want to make sure that we're building off that, not just repeating it.
Yeah, and when we're also like influenced by The Wire and The Shield, and there's so many awesome neo-noir shows that have been on the air that have been so freaking exciting. The movie Drive, there's so many things that have inspired the way we're tackling that. Yes, I cannot tell you how much the first season of Defenders and Jessica and it would visually inspire us, but those are two of things of 50 that have equally inspired us.
ICB2, Nicole?
Yo.
Hi.
You mentioned early on in the conversation that right away there's going to be a big event that'll kind of get the attention of the other heroes in the universe. Is that going to spill out at all into any of the other books?
Yes. I should say the event is more like a character's introduction into and what they do immediately as their first act. It will be damaging to each defender, and that absolutely will pour into their books. It's a game changer for everyone involved. And there's no way it doesn't get spill out. For certainly Will and Jessica. I can't speak to the other books, but actually I can, because David Walker, who's a good friend of ours, both David and I actually teach here at Portland State. We're very connected in the portrayal of Luke and Jessica and Luke and Danny. And Charles has been very, very gracious and cool about how we're going forward, as is his way.
Cool. And with that, we've got a couple more minutes, but I think the best way to kind of close this out is, Brian, do you have any final thoughts you want to offer up to everybody? And we'll just go with Brian, David, and Tom, if you guys want to offer any additional notes. Any teases?
Oh, I can tease. I got all kinds of teases.
I know you can.
Well, I can tell you we have a very good start. I'm so excited about the start of this because it really is like the first chapter of a brand new big story in Marvel Comics. And we gave a lot of thought into the fact that there's going to be people who read this who were fans of our old runs on the books, and there will be people who've never ever read a word of that stuff, but will have heard good things, will be coming to us to see if the good things were true. And then there's people who have seen the shows and finally, I'm dying for Defenders to start on TV. Oh, good, the comics here to like scratch that itch till the TV show gets. So with those in mind, we really did try to craft a brand new look at the Marvel Streets and the Marvel Street heroes and how they interact with each other. And with that comes every issue, at least one surprise person popping up. And I have smiled every time we've been able to pull it off. So
awesome. David, any other teasers you want to offer up? Any other surprises?
I just think that everyone on the team is really committed to making sure that we're honoring, the long, diverse history of all these characters and just the broad swath of street-level characters Marvel has to offer. What has made Marvel kind of so distinct as a publishing house for so long is the tagline that, Marvel inhabits the same world that you do. You look out the window and the same world they see out the window, just maybe through a slightly different filter. And so we're trying to present all this, characters and storylines that are familiar to readers in a very new and refreshing way.
Awesome.
What's your favorite part to draw so far, David?
Well, I can't say because we haven't told anybody the characters. So,
all right, what's your least favorite part to draw?
Yeah.
Oh man, New York has a lot of buildings, man.
It is a lot of buildings. There's a lot of windows. I noticed that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry about that. Nothing I can do.
Yeah. And Tom, anything to add?
I think the thing that I would say, particularly this week and on Saturday, is the Free Comic Book Day story. Much like the Secret Empire Zero, we did not wait to dive into the meat of this story. So that chapter that we're giving away absolutely for free is an essential taste as to what this book is going to be like and how fast it's going to move and how hard it's going to hit. People should definitely make it a point to go to their local retailer this Saturday and pick up a copy of it. You get a very nice Jerry Duggan, Aaron Cooter Guardian story as well. But I think that that little taste of Defenders will hit you right in the gut, and you'll be salivating for when #1 drops next month.
I tell you, this worked out really well because David and I were feeling very warm and tingly about how generous the readership had been towards us, from Miles to Iron Man to Civil War, and it was very cool that Marvel set us up to give like a free comic book. Literally, like, here's a free comic book to say thank you, and also here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do next. And it's and also Free Comic Day is a promotion for the stores, and we took it upon ourselves and have done in the past to make sure that not only is it a very good product that's free, but it's a product that like matters. Like, you will need to read this, and I think that's the best Valentine you can give to the stores. Like, that's the best present you can give them on Free Comic Day is a store. People always say, do I need to read this? Yes, you need to read this one. Go into the stores, go to Free Comic Day, get your free comics, take your friends, and then and as your bonus, you get this free Defenders comic that's gonna rattle your chain for at least a month.
It's the official first chapter in Defenders.
Yes, absolutely.
And
free.
Yes, and free. And with that, I want to thank everybody.
Yeah, I know people laugh. Like, I hear the reporter snickering. We keep saying free. Literally every 20 minutes, someone asks us how much the Free Comic Day comics are. I promise you that's true. I'm not making fun of anybody. They really can't believe it every single year. If I was a kid, if I was a teenager, and they said, no, it's free, go in there, I'm like, are you sure? Like that. It sounds like we're setting people up. So it's free, for real.
So Free Comic Book Day is this Saturday. It's the official first chapter of Defenders. Brian Michael Bendis, I want to thank you for joining us. David Marquez.
Hey, by the way, if I may, David and I will be making a very rare public appearance here in Portland at Things from Another World at 5 o'clock with the amazing David Walker. Dude, it's the only place in America you'll be able to get your free comic book day stuff signed. It's also my only American appearance this year, so come on down and we'll give you a hug.
Awesome. Promise hug. Perfect. Awesome. Guys, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, Free Comic Book Day. First chapter, Defenders, this Saturday, and then June 14th is Defenders #1. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. All right. We'll talk to everybody later. Thanks a lot.
Okay, and we're back, and that was amazing, Brian. I can't believe it's already been an hour.
Yeah, I don't understand why you and I had to sit in silence for an hour while they listened to that. Can't you just edit it in?
No, you had to.
This isn't like Letterman. There's no band while the commercials play.
Good stuff. We're back. That's right. I feel like Carson.
That was, but okay.
Now
is that your Jack Parr?
Okay, everybody. So there's part one, because once again my microphone muted on me, and I've spent a week fixing it. But it's all fixed now, and that's why I'm releasing this new Bendis Tapes and new Word Balloon episode today. I was able to get J.K. Woodward out there in his Star Trek Free Comic Book Day using a backup computer, but this is a better computer. I'm glad this is back up and running, and happy to present part one of the Bendis Tapes for you today. Part two is coming up very soon, and I just want to record a little header with Brian, which we hope to do this week. And we'll give you part two. It's more great conversation. Again, we get into more stuff about all the Bendis books and other good stuff that we recorded. A nice, lengthy Bendis tapes for you, and nice timing with the 12th anniversary here. So thanks a lot for listening to Word Balloon. As always, really appreciate you guys and women, all of you, sticking with me. When I say you guys, women refer to yourselves as guys as well. I've heard it. Dudes. Thank you very much for your support, for your attention, and the good feelings you give me when you really enjoy the conversations. Man, great feedback from the Dan Slott interview. I thank you for that. And, there's a whole archive of Word Balloon, as you know, several hundred episodes, over 700, really, of Word Balloon if you go right through them. And go to wordballoon.com, and you can find them all. Thank you again for listening today. It was brought to you by InStock Trades at instocktrades.com. And Word Balloon was also brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you, League, for your support via Patreon. I truly appreciate everything you do as I am trying to get through this time where I'm working one part-time job, back in radio, and trying to build Word Balloon along the way as well. So thank you very much for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners, through Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/wordballoon and think Word Balloon is worth a subscription, is it worth the price of a comic book? If you can spare that every month, that would be great. You can either go to patreon.com/wordballoon or go to wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad right there on the front page. It will take you to my Patreon page. But really, thank you for the support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Okay, that's it. Questions or comments about the show, reach me via email, john@wordballoon.com, and follow me on Facebook under my name, John Suntress, and the Word Balloon Network, and also at Twitter under @JohnWordBalloon. I try to remember to Instagram when I can. I try to remember to Tumblr if I really have something interesting to say on Tumblr. The big net neutrality plea I should probably put on Tumblr, and I think I will do that. Watch Last Week Tonight. I'm telling you. You will understand net neutrality and truly see that it's a very important thing to maintain. And thanks for listening to my little rant about net neutrality today as well. Looking forward to giving you part two on the next Word Balloon of the Bendis Tapes. Until then, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2017.